What width and length steel strip is needed in order to drill two holes of diameter D equals 3 1/8 inches and allow X equals 3/4 inches between and on each side of the holes. So we're talking about a steel strip like this one in this figure, and we want to know what is the length and width of this steel strip, given that this length D is 3 1/8 inches. So this length and this length are 3 1/8 inches, and the length X here, which is the same here and here, because it says in between and on each side of the holes, is 3/4 an inch. So this is 3/4 an inch, this is 3 1/8 inch, 3/4, 3 1/8, 3/4. And then on the width we have 3/4 inch, 3 1/8 inch, because the diameter would be the same going this way, and then another 3/4 inches here. So for calculating the length, we need to add 3/4 inches here, 3 1/8 inches here, 3/4 inches, 3 1/8 inches, 3/4 inches. So for the length, we have to add a whole bunch of mixed numbers and fractions. So length is the diameter of the two holes, 3 1/8 inches plus 3 1/8 inches, plus the length between the two holes, 3/4 an inch, plus the length on each side of the holes, 3/4 an inch plus 3/4 an inch. For simplifying this expression, we'll start by converting the mixed numbers to improper fractions. So multiply the denominator by the whole number part, add the numerator, so you'd have 24 plus 1 is 25 over the original denominator. 3 1/8 also 25 over 8. Then we want to simplify what's inside the parentheses. We don't really need these parentheses here because it isn't going to change anything, removing them. To simplify these parentheses, we'll add what's inside. These two fractions already have the same denominator, 8, so we can add the numerators and keep the common denominator to get 50 over 8. Same thing here, both of these two fractions already have the same denominator, 4, so we can add the numerators, 3 plus 3, to get 6 and keep the common denominator of 4. So now we've simplified down to 3 fractions, 50 over 8 plus 3 over 4 plus 6 over 4. Next we want to add fractions with like denominators, so we have two fractions here with the same denominator. We'll add those. 3 plus 6 is 9 over that common denominator, 4. Now we've simplified down to two fractions. They have different denominators, so we're going to need to find a least common denominator, which in this case is 8, the smallest number that is divisible by 8 and 4. That's our least common denominator. We already have a denominator of 8 on our first fraction, so we don't have to do anything to that fraction, but we need to build up the second fraction to make it into an equivalent fraction with that denominator 8. So we have to think about what do we multiply times 4 to get a denominator of 8, which we have to multiply 4 by 2. So we multiply 4 by 2. We want an equivalent fraction, so we also have to multiply the numerator by 2. So then we get equivalent fraction with denominator 8, which is 2 times 4, and numerator 18, which is 2 times 19. So now we have two fractions with the same denominator 8. So then we can add them, add the numerators, keep that common denominator. 50 plus 18 is 68. We have two even numbers here, so obviously we can reduce. We actually can divide both by 4. They both have 4 as a factor, so we divide both numerator and denominator by the same number, getting a reduced equivalent fraction, 17 over 2. We want to convert this into a mixed number. Well, 2 goes into 17 8 times with 1 remainder. 2 times 8 is 16. Add 1, we get 17. So then we have 8 as the whole number part, 1 remainder as the numerator over the original denominator of 2. So then 17 over 2 is 8 1/2. The length of the steel strip in inches, 8 1/2 inches is the length. For the width, let's go back to our original image. The width would be this length, 3/4 inches, plus the diameter of the hole, which is 3 1/8 inches, plus the length on the other side, which is 3/4 inches. So for the width, we have the diameter of one hole plus the length on each side of the hole. So that's 3 1/8 plus the lengths on each side of that hole, 3/4 inch. We need to change our mixed number into an improper fraction. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 1 gives us 25 over the original denominator 8. We'll simplify inside parentheses. We have the same denominator already, so we can just add the numerators to get 6, keep the common denominator 4. Now we have two fractions with different denominators. First we find the least common denominator, which in this case would be 8, because 8 is the smallest number that is divisible by both denominators 8 and 4. The first fraction already has a denominator of 8, so we don't need to change the first fraction, but the second fraction has a denominator 4, so we need to build it up to an equivalent fraction with denominator 8. We have to multiply 4 by 2 to get 8. In the denominator, to make an equivalent fraction, we have to do the same thing in the numerator, so we're also going to multiply the numerator by 2. So then we have 2 times 6, which is 12, and 2 times 4, which is 8. So this is 12 over 8 is an equivalent fraction to 6 over 4, and it has denominator 8. So now we have two fractions with the same denominator, so we can add those numerators, keep that common denominator to get 37 over 8, which is not reducible. So we need to then still change this back to a mixed number. Well, 8 goes into 37 4 times with a remainder of 5. 8 times 4 would be 32, and then we'd add 5 to get 37. So 4 is our whole number part, and the remainder of 5 is the numerator with the original denominator of 8. So then the length, or the width of the steel strip would be 4 5/8 inches.